And thank you so much for being here for the Future of Work Symposium. I am Linda Rourke. I'm Senior Development Officer of Academic Partnerships with the Mohawk College Foundation and a member of the Mohawk College Alumni Council and a proud Mohawk College grad. I'm excited for the conversation we'll be having around the future of work involving technology, equity, diversity, inclusion. We'll talk about how different groups are affected by the changing landscape of work and what the essential skills students and future generations will need to thrive. I would like to introduce you first to Leah Hogan, Manager, Indigenous Education, Indigenous Initiatives Office at Mohawk College, to give the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Linda. Mohawk College derives its name from the Mohawk Nation, one of the 6 nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. The Confederacy marks a union of peace and friendship, and Mohawk College honors that union by recognizing the 6 nations of the Grand River and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We acknowledge that these territories on which Mohawk College and its campuses are situated are governed by the Between the Lakes Treaty, the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement, and the Upper Canada Treaty Agreement. These agreements are binding to this day and represent our mutual commitment to maintain healthy, reciprocal, and respectful relationships with the many Indigenous nations and peoples of this area. We acknowledge this and reiterate our dedication to inclusivity, to friendship, and to valuing the ongoing contributions of Indigenous peoples and communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leah. Now, we are so fortunate at Mohawk College to have such innovative leaders, and our Vice President of Academic, Allison Horton, is one of them. Allison.
Thank you very much, Linda. That was a lovely introduction, and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today, to our industry partners, to our employees, to Mohawk College alumni, and of course, most importantly, to our students who have joined us this afternoon. So welcome to the Women in Technology and Trades Symposium. I would like to start off by taking a moment to acknowledge that this event and all of our Women in Technology and Trades initiatives are made possible with the very generous support of RBC and the RBC Future Launch Program. RBC is a great supporter of WiTT and of creating opportunities for women to succeed in their chosen fields. So Mohawk's WiTT group was first formed a couple of years ago in 2017. So the college was engaged at that time in a national STEM workshop, and we were also conducting our own research project on women in trades. And the research indicated that women make up only 3 to 5% of the workforce in skilled trades. So together, that knowledge and the momentum of that national leadership workshop inspired a group of Mohawks women leaders to join forces to inspire change. And they wanted to encourage young women to pursue both promising and fulfilling careers in technology and trades. So a number of those original WiTT members are with us this evening, and I want to express my gratitude for their leadership in this area. They, and I think many others participating in the event, are supporting and inspiring an exciting new workforce. And building on the efforts of these women leaders, our WiTT program has had a promising year despite the pandemic. We have received incredible support from industry partners and have strengthened our connections with our school board partners as well, which has been very exciting. So this year, we have been able to award $28,000 in bursaries for women in technology and trades, thanks to a donation from RBC. And this funding is helping us to directly address the financial insecurity that some aspiring tradeswomen face while pursuing their education. We've also received ongoing support from Electra Utilities, from IBM, and from Walters Group. And of course, the support of these sponsors is allowing us to focus more energy and resources on this effort. A great example, an exciting example of this is Aldershot High School in Burlington. They have become one of the early adopters of our WiTT kits for high school students, integrating the STEM curriculum into activities for students and teachers. So they're assessing the kits and they're going to provide feedback before we make them available to school boards across our region. So a very, very exciting initiative. We're also working with another education partner, Six Nations Polytechnic, and we've recently increased support for Indigenous women in technology and trades through the P-Tech program and IBM Skills Academy. So sure, you can see, strides are being made, and the future, I think, is looking bright for women in STEM programs. Aptly, this afternoon's focus is on the future of work, as Linda mentioned, and it's an excellent topic to explore, especially at this particular time. I recently heard a great example of that that I wanted to share with you, and that is a woman by the name of Krista Jackson. She followed her older brother into the trades and she became a reinforcing iron worker, working her way through apprenticeship to become a Red Seal tradeswoman and worked as a lead hand and forewoman as well. So though she was sometimes the only woman on the team, she was well respected and worked all across Canada on very important, exciting projects. And she actually worked on the team that built our Joyce Center for Partnership and Innovation at Mohawk. And that building, if you're not familiar with it, is a high-tech award-winning green building. It's the first of its kind in Canada to be designed and operate with a zero carbon footprint. So it was a cutting-edge project for Krista and all of the workers, of course, who were involved. So since then, Krista has decided to go back to college at Mohawk and to retrain for a new field, studying in the environmental technician program. And this semester, she is working on a project, so get ready for this, studying the use of ionized hydroperoxide and bipolar ionization light technology. So I'm sure you all know exactly what that is. I know I did. But this technology is actually being used to kill COVID-19 and other viruses and bacteria inside ventilation systems at schools to help keep students and teachers safer in their classrooms during the pandemic. So just a fascinating project. And another fun fact, as my kids like to say, the research team that Krista is working on that project is based in that state-of-the-art building that she helped to build at Mohawk. So a full circle, wonderful, wonderful story to be able to share with you today. So what a career she's had, I mean, and who knows where she'll end up in a couple of years from now. So if you have an interest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which I know, of course, everyone on this call does, and for prospective students in particular, we really do encourage them to pursue those options and pursue their passions. And you're going to hear from some accomplished and inspiring people this afternoon. They are groundbreakers. And one part that's so important is that they are here because they want to help you succeed in your studies and your careers. So once again, I would like to thank all of our guest speakers today for their commitment to giving back to the community with their time and expertise. And hearing your stories is such a game changer for our students as well. And I hope you're able to leave this afternoon with some new information, some new ideas, and some new excitement for the future ahead of you. So thank you again, and looking forward to the talk today.
Well, thanks so much, Allison. And yeah, you said, I mean, we couldn't do any of this without our incredible partners and this initiative with WiTT. We so thank you, RBC, for being such a wonderful partner with Mohawk College. So I'd like to introduce you to Lori Davidson, who's the Regional Vice President of the Hamilton, Brantford, and Norfolk market for RBC. Lori?
Thanks, Linda. It's a mouthful for me too, so don't worry about it. It took me forever. We shorten everything, so we just say HBN now. It's just much easier, and it saves. You wouldn't believe how much time it saves. So anyway, Good afternoon, everyone, and what a complete pleasure it is to be here today on behalf of RBC and to see so many incredibly bright young minds coming together to learn, share ideas, and engage in this meaningful discussion. We've had a long and very strong partnership with Mohawk, and I have great respect for Mohawk College and all the ways they impact their students and our communities. When I think about us at RBC, we recognize that we have a leading role to play in helping young people shape the progression in Canada. As part of RBC's ongoing commitment to youth, I am absolutely thrilled to announce RBC's gift of $300,000 to the Mohawk Women in Technology and Trades program to support a unique mentorship program, networking opportunities, and new avenues for learning. We are so inspired by this opportunity to deepen our relationship with Mohawk with the aim of enhancing the experiences of women in technology and trades. Our future in this program is part of our RBC Future Launch program, our $500 million 10-year commitment to help youth prepare for the jobs of tomorrow. This is our largest citizenship commitment in RBC's history, which speaks to the importance of supporting tomorrow's leaders. This commitment is an investment in our collective future, one which will meaningfully support our future women professionals, many of who are on this call today. I want to personally thank the entire faculty and leadership team at Mohawk for your partnership in bringing this program to life. We can't wait to see this program come to life and wish all the future women computer programmers, data scientists, threat hunters, tradeswomen, engineers, and all other professions you can dream up continued success and prosperity to you all. Now, to celebrate this exciting news with all of you, here we have something fun planned for you this afternoon. So one of you here today will receive a $500 support towards your studies and a $500 donation to an organization of your choice that supports women and pays it forward. So here's how it's going to work. Head on over to the Mohawk Women in Trade and Technology page on LinkedIn or Facebook, where you will see a question posted. Who is a woman in the technology or trades field that has inspired you and why? Share your thoughts and your comments on the post using the hashtag Mohawk FOW. Our team in the background will then randomly select a winner from the responses. Following the event, our winner will receive the $500 to support your studies and a $500 donation to an organization you choose to support women to pay it forward. I have been so incredibly fortunate in my life to have some incredible women that I can't wait to hear about the amazing women that all inspired you today. Thank you so much for having us here. We're incredibly proud partners and we look forward to this evening. So back over to you, Linda.
Well, thanks so much, Laura. That's incredible. Thank you for an additional gift. It just keeps giving. And we, again, are just so grateful for RBC and the partnership with Mohawk College. So thank you for that. Well, we know there's always room for change and improvement in areas. And one of those areas that we're hearing a lot about lately is equity, diversity, and inclusion. Maxine Carter is the Director and Special Advisor for Equity and Social Inclusion at Mohawk College. So Maxine, I invite you to say a few words.
Turn my, yeah, there we go. Sorry, 1 second. There, okay, good. Thanks everyone. And I appreciate the invitation. It's actually my pleasure to be here. And thanks to the WiTT organizers at Mohawk College and for inviting me to participate to such an important event that it's happening at a time of really unprecedented challenges and change. It can also be seen maybe as an opportunity to make needed change as we see the impact of COVID-19 and its disproportionate impact on Indigenous, Black, and racialized persons and communities, including the impact on women across the spectrum. With that backdrop of a rapidly growing population that is more diverse each year in Canada and in Hamilton, the campus has become increasingly complex in relation to the range and the dimension of diversity than ever before. The need to be more reflective of the community could not be greater, as the need for tools to help navigate the complexity of the diversity of our students in the classroom, and not to minimize the social issues facing us over the last number of years, such as the Me Too movement, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendations, the surge of transgender violence across the nation, Black Lives Matter movement, and then fast forward to now, within this last several months, the protests around the world as a result of those protests. Mohawk College, though, didn't just start in terms of EDI, they didn't just start that now. Back in 2016, they embarked on a road to implement an organization-wide equity, diversity, inclusion strategic objective to ensuring an inclusive, welcoming, and supportive environment for everyone in our college community. As a result of that, I was hired into this position as the Director and Special Advisor for Equity and Inclusion. I was tasked with developing a strategic plan regarding EDI. And out of that, we developed 5 commitments for the organization to begin the journey of implementing an equity, diversity, and inclusion strategic plan within the organization, and a commitment to making this environment as welcoming, supportive, and creating a sense of belonging for all. Our 5 commitments are that we are seeking to look at talent reflective of the community in our employment workforce. We committed to creating an inclusive environment for working, for learning. We also committed to strengthening inclusive competencies and training our employees to be better at understanding and implementing an EDI framework and the principles that go with that. We also are developing an equity and inclusion framework for the corporation with an accompanying series of equity lenses that will help our staff and our faculty to be able to implement this in a seamless manner by identifying barriers and gaps and addressing those as we go along. And then finally, we also committed to expanding the use of universal design for learning and within the academic areas of our organization, where we have teaching and learning competencies that it gets built into. And we also committed to elevating and advancing accessibility, not just at the legislative level, but well beyond that, so that accessibility becomes part of how we do our business. If you wish to learn more about these equity, diversity, inclusion strategic commitments, this information is on our website, and the college will continue to communicate progress as we continue to make progress. We'll communicate out. Thanks so much. And it's a snippet, but I'm hoping that you have gotten the gist of where we are today with our commitments. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Maxine. We'll be covering, this topic throughout the discussion with our 6 panelists as we progress tonight too, because it is such a good area to delve into. Well, you've met a couple of our panelists, but I'm going to give you a little more background on everyone. So I'll start with Leah Hogan. She's the manager of our Indigenous education at Mohawk College, and Leah is Bear Clan with family ancestry in Oneida Nation of the Thames and residing in Stony Creek. Now, Leah has worked at Mohawk College for over 15 years, primarily supporting Indigenous students through college policies and advocating on their behalf, and through her current role is supporting Indigenous partnerships, quality assurance process, and program development. And Leah's community work is comprised of participating on the Indigenous Post-Secondary Education Council, Mohawk College Indigenous Education Council, Hamilton Wentworth District School Board Education Circle, and serving as a board of director member at Interval House of Hamilton. Very busy. As a lifelong learner, her education journey includes a 3-year business administration diploma, Bachelor of Commerce, Bachelor of Education, and has recently completed her Master's of Education, specializing in Indigenous education at Queen's University. We're very fortunate to have Leah. Lara Beauvais is Senior Manager, Performance Optimization and Early Talent at RBC. In her role, Lara manages the Early Talent Program with RBC's Canadian banking operations. This program hires over 250 students each year through a variety of co-op and internship roles. Lara also manages performance enablement within Canadian banking operations, ensuring that employees and people managers have the resources that they need to succeed in their roles. Lara has a degree in fine arts, so it's not surprising that she's creative and very people-focused. She is energized by connecting with students and colleagues and helping them expand their learning and their networks. Lara is passionate about RBC's diverse work, integrated learning opportunities, and enjoys working closely with colleagues across the organization to ensure those opportunities are a success for students and their managers. Maxine Carter is the Director and Special Advisor, Equity and Social Inclusion at Mohawk College. Maxine spent many successful years at the City of Hamilton, where she was Manager, Access and Equity. Building on her early work with communities, Maxine played a leadership role with city staff and council and developed access, equity, and inclusion strategies, including the city's first inclusive inclusion policy. She was instrumental in the work to establish what is known today as the Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion. Maxine is an accomplished trainer, facilitator, and public speaker, and author on various subjects to foster a better understanding of human rights, equity, diversity, anti-racism, anti-oppression, cultural competence, disability and accessibility, and anti-violence. Maxine is also a YWCA Woman of Distinction Award winner for Community Development and Social Inclusion. Mary Fuke is the Program Manager, Skilled Trades at Six Nations Polytechnic in Brantford. For over 20 years, Mary has worked in various roles in skilled trades and apprenticeship programs in both Ontario and Alberta. She is passionate about the industry and will be joining Skills Ontario as a member of the board in December of 2020. It is Mary's zealous that has led her to engaging others about increasing opportunities for women in the trades, and she is always finding ways to advocate the trades and apprenticeship as a career pathway. Makeda George is a certified construction engineering technologist with experience in traffic management, architectural drafting, project engineering, and estimating. She has a keen interest in project management, architecture, quantity surveying, event management, and giving back to her community by volunteering her time on many committees. Makeda is a well-rounded professional who has a passion for sharing knowledge with others through mentoring and being a part of the change she would like to see in this world. Through OACETT, the Ontario Association of Certified Engineering Technicians and Technologists, Makeda has taken on a leadership role as chair of the Hamilton chapter and has been active in advocating for women in technology and the engineering field. Marla Robinson recently joined the City School team at Mohawk College as the Special Projects Academic Coordinator. Marla has worked with Mohawk College for over 20 years, and she has been a faculty member and program coordinator at the Marshall School of Skilled Trades for a large portion of this time. Marla leverages technical and advanced manufacturing expertise to support the development and implementation of skilled trades training and early college pathway initiatives focused on supporting local employers and community stakeholders by training the workforce of tomorrow. One of Marla's specialties is the design and development of employer-informed training, responsive to labor market needs and trends, focused on creating training strategies to support post-COVID economic recovery, especially for vulnerable, marginalized populations and newly displaced workers. Well, thank you, panelists, for being here. My goodness, what an incredible team of people. Nice round of applause. This is amazing. We're going to get some fantastic perspective tonight. So let's get right into it, because we now have about an hour and a half left, and we've got lots of great questions and would love to hear from you as well. Everyone participating, again, you can put your questions into the chat and we'll do our best to get to them. You can also just sit back and listen to the incredible conversation that I know will unfold. So I'm going to direct a question at a panelist just to start the conversation, and then I'll be asking the panelists to jump in. So, you know, any of the speakers tonight, just whatever you think about the topic that we put out there, please feel free to add in. But Lara, I want to start with you and ask you, because I mean, things have changed. I mean, it's the time of COVID-19. Who thought we'd be still sitting at home working, most of us, after almost 8 months, right? So what do you believe the future of work will look like? And let's say, you know, 5 years and even as far out as 10 years. So I'll start with you, Lara, and then everyone else you can join in. What are your thoughts on that?
Thanks everybody for having me. It's great to be here. So a couple things. So I was doing some research and I rediscovered a white paper we put together not that long ago called Humans Wanted. And it refreshed a lot of things that I'd remembered, some things I'd forgotten. But basically right now, and what I've even seen over the last 5 years coming in the future, some essential things that aren't going to go away are soft skills, communication, collaboration, critical thinking. Those transferable skills are becoming more and more common and necessary in everyday work. Being adaptable, having the ability to pivot and change. There are a lot of people who have graduated, you know, recently, and we've had some people who changed their careers or tweak what they've studied to go back and offset some of the things they've already learned. So having that adaptability and growth mindset is really huge. Analytics are definitely not going away. The data is king, not just because I work at a bank, but really it's pervasive in a lot of roles. Right now across the bank, they're even looking to upskill all of our workforce just from a basic data literacy standpoint. Not everybody needs to be a data scientist. Not everybody needs to be a deep data analyst. But just having data literacy and being able to understand what the story tells and how to translate that story to tell it to others is really critical. As many of you might possibly know, including in this environment, digital is non-negotiable. You know, being a coder is great, but you don't even necessarily need to be a coder. Just getting comfortable with technology. I know generally today's generation is fairly tech ready. But even helping the rest of us who might have been in the workforce for a little bit longer, we're all adapting and learning to adjust in this technological age. And mobility is becoming a thing, although COVID's kind of put that flipped it on its side. Historically, you wanted to be able to have that mobility to go to a job anywhere at any location across Canada. Now, thanks to COVID, there's been some interesting resetting of that in that we've all learned that we can work remotely and still get our work done. And so in some ways, being willing to work anywhere is an asset. So, you know, you live in the greater Horseshoe area, but you're willing to work at a team in Vancouver and adjust your hours accordingly, great. Or there's a role maybe down east in the Maritimes that's interesting to you. If it's a virtual role, absolutely, but also being willing to pick up and move is still really necessary. In terms of 10 years from now, I'll share some stats. I don't have deep line of sight on careers in the next 10 years, but some interesting stats to share. A couple of which 20% of Canadians will be, and this is in 2030, 20% of Canadians will be of age 65 and older. Right now, it's only 17%. 28% of Canadians will be foreign born compared to only 22% today. And the labor force participation rate will only be 62% compared to what it is today at 66%. So automation, changes, technology, there's going to be a lot of changes coming in the next few years.
Thanks. Really good perspective there. I love what you're saying. And I love the soft skills and talking about that because, you know, for students right now who've just started into school, they're working, they're at home, they're not doing the collaborative in class stuff, right? So it'll be interesting to see what that's going to mean, you know, 5 years from now, even two years from now, is hopefully we get back into our somewhat regular work environments. Anyone else right now have anything to add to this part of the discussion? Because I think this is a really neat one to just get different perspectives on what you think the workforce will be like in 5 or 10 years from now. Thanks, Lara.
I can jump in. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me too. Just to add on to what Laura was saying, she talked about the upskilling, but even reskilling, but the need for continuous learning as we move through the future of work. Because I think as jobs change, there's going to be that continuous need to learn. It may not be going back to school full time or anything like that, but it's taking a look at even the newest thing with those micro credentials and how that's going to fit into the future of work as well.
Anyone else want to add on this topic? Because we got lots to talk about, so we can move on. But I always want to give you the opportunity. Maxine, I see you. Yeah, no, it's good.
I know. I was saying, okay, should I add? Anyway, no, just a little bit. I think I wanted to just to add this, that while yes, there's a lot of companies looking at reskilling, and and a lot of company executives are saying we have like a skills shortage now because of the digital move to digital and technology. The other aspect of that, though, that has cropped up is the fact that there's a lot of social and emotional issues that are coming along with this, in which we're going to have to support folks as they move into a different way of working, where they're isolated, they're on their own. This is not the way humans have been socialized over the last, I don't know, 2 million years. So this is very new for us, and we also have to build into, our, sort of planning, employment planning, and so on. That this area around supporting people's emotional needs, and resilience, and their ability to adapt and change quickly. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Yeah, and well, we have you, because the next question, Maxine, actually does focus on how organizations are actually addressing the future work from an equity, diversity, and inclusivity perspective. So I'm going to start with you on this question, and then we'll open up the conversation for others to join in.
Okay. Oh, that was the question. Okay. Yes.
Yes.
So
yes. Sorry. How is the future of work from an equity, diversity, and inclusivity perspective, and even from a technology perspective, as far as that goes, which you just touched upon in your last comment.
Right. Yes. This is such a big area. It's very vast in the sense that I think that a lot of workplaces, a lot of employers have not had this top of mind. And what's happened is, I think we've been sort of just skimming the top around equity and inclusion over the number of years. But with the impact of the pandemic, it has elevated, populations that are disenfranchised and underrepresented. And so by doing that, it has shown the disparities. And so I think what workplaces, one of the areas that you see, and that I've seen in my area of work, is that you'll notice that many companies now are looking for skills, for employees of skills around understanding inclusion, equity, and diversity, and understanding how to build that into into the this sort of new work environment. We need to be aware of where the gaps and the barriers are, where people, may be falling through the cracks because they don't have, for example, we're dealing with populations who are most impacted where they can't socially distance. They're living in situations where there are a large number of people within that, in living environment, and they can't socially distance. We may have to look at supporting those employees. In the basis of equity is, how do you level the playing field so that everyone has an opportunity to do well? Employers, if they want to be ahead of the curve, think about how your employees need, what they need to be able to deliver what they need to do in terms of their job skills, like being their whole self at work. What do you need? So their needs might be different than other employees. And so you have to consider that and build that in. Be aware of the things that might be affecting an employee. When you're talking about, populations that are racialized, Indigenous, populations living in poverty, in your workplace, in our case, in the educational environment, just imagine that at least maybe every single one of those individuals knows someone who's had COVID, or knows someone who's died of COVID. So that aspect of just being able to support your employees is very important. When you have employees with disabilities, while there are many folks who have disabilities that actually, this is an advantage, because now I don't have to worry about transportation. I don't have to worry about a washroom, finding a washroom along the way. I don't have to worry about getting into a building because I can do it all online. And that does work for a significant number of people now, being able to do online work that they've been begging for their entire lifetime. And now it's here. But then there are employees where this does not work, who have disabilities, because they need to be able to be in closer contact. They need support, be able to do their job. So there's some, definitely opportunities, but also challenges. So I could talk about this all night. So I'll offer the other panelists an opportunity to jump in too.
Thanks, Maxine. Really great perspective there. Others who have something to add to sort of what maybe even your organization, or even just a perspective on this particular topic. And I think of the technology side, because that's been a challenge for so many people adjusting to what COVID-19 means.
Yeah, I don't mind adding to this conversation with what we've seen with Indigenous students specifically, and some staff members that do live within community. Some of the issues that are being raised for the lack of IT infrastructure in community. And so that has really challenged our students with having safe, reliable internet access in order to do the online learning. So that has been a challenge. And I will say, though, that the college has really stepped up to the plate and provided the supports that our students would need, whether it's devices or actual IT connectivity. So, whether it's a Rogers Hub or Stick, we've been able to provide with unlimited data, which has been really great and really helpful for our students, and not just within community, but also within urban centers too. Because although maybe our urban Indigenous students might not have the same connectivity issues, again, if we're talking about poverty and access to data plans that usually require credit checks, there might be some challenges there too. So all of these things that had to be considered while we were in midst of the pandemic, not saying we're not in it right now, but when it first came into our reality, was really kind of trying to get ahead of that need and really understanding that we didn't want to wait for the students to come to us with these issues. We really wanted to ensure that we were able to meet them and offer it to them and not wait for them to come to us, which I think is really important when we're thinking about where we are right now with regards to technology, specifically for racialized communities.
Yeah, I think that a really good point brought up by both you, Leah, and Maxine is understanding the needs of those within your organization, whether it's your students or whether it's your colleagues, and how to manage that and make sure that they're getting all the support that they need to be able to adapt, adjust, and be successful in the way the world is right now. And this, as we've spoken, this could be months, it could be another year. So it's really important to set everyone up to succeed. Anyone else who wants to add in on this particular question?
I'll jump in. Why not? With our programs, pivoting over to online learning has definitely been a challenge. And the same, we're experiencing some of the same things that Leah has talked about, that's for sure. But also that, being in the skilled trades department, they're also hands-on visual learners. So to put them onto a technology platform is also a little bit challenging when they want to be in a shop using things rather than spending time or talking directly to an instructor, do you know what I mean? So looking at ways to be able to have them face-to-face virtually with that instructor has been really important, and making sure that there's regular connections with that instructor has been really important as well. And just, Maxine was talking about the employer support. I'm going to jump around a little bit here, but, it's really important with even encouraging people going into the skilled trades, Indigenous individuals, women, persons with disabilities, any racialized, but they have a hard time seeing themselves in sometimes some of the jobs that they're looking into because of the fact that there's no one there to kind of support them, or they don't see themselves. So that employer support on that side is also going to be extremely important, so that they start seeing that. And these, the way that the WiTT and other things like this are really encouraging to be able to support that well, because then we start seeing those other people who are in those jobs and can start seeing ourselves and other people in those careers as well.
Makeda, did you want to add to this?
Yes, I did. And I think with employers need to start creating an atmosphere of positivity, a safe atmosphere where persons who feel that they're in the minority group get an opportunity to give their ideas, to say how they feel, because in a lot of places, a lot of employers do not have a space open for employees to speak to them about those topics. A lot of them do not have the atmosphere, the gender diversity and all those kind of things. They don't. Luckily with OACETT, they've been preparing for this for the past few years, where they have been putting programs in place to support persons. And they have actually, we just got a new CEO where she herself, she actually called most of our chapter chairs, and she had the discussion with us to find out exactly what we need. And that's where the inclusivity comes in, where you get the feedback from persons. And a lot of employers don't do that. So I think as employers, they need to open up the gaps. They need to open up the way for persons to feel like they have that support. They have that environment of encouragement. They have the environment of they could participate freely without being judged. They can contribute to how things operate in the workplace. And in a lot of workplaces, they don't have that kind of environment. And for us to start seeing the diversity and equality and inclusivity, it starts from the top. It has to start from the top, and we all have to take the responsibility and understand that we should create that kind of atmosphere for everybody to feel that they're safe in the working environment, because a lot of persons don't feel like they're acceptable in the working environment. Some of them just feel like they're just there because they have to be there.
I think it'll be interesting to see, hopefully many positives come out of the situation we were thrown into so very, very quickly, right? I mean, if someone said we were going to all be working from home and virtually, or a good majority of people, because I mean, we also obviously have to take a look at a lot of the skilled trades, you're not working from home, you're out there, right? But hopefully we'll see some positives in a lot of the things that you're saying. So let's talk about what careers, and Mary, I'll direct this to you. What careers will truly be transformed by the technological changes that are going to happen through the process of what we have to deal with COVID-19?
So many have changed already just from COVID-19, hasn't it? That's for sure. Definitely, like as we continue moving forward, automation is going to continue no matter what we do. And so we have to take a look at what kind of careers are going to be doing that, and how it's actually going to shift into the skilled trades. And I apologize, that's going to be mostly my focus here. But when you even taking a look at the digital skills that's needed in pretty much all the sectors of skilled trades as you move forward, like that's how really those jobs are going to change. Even from construction point of view, you have smart homes now. So those carpenters may need to learn more about those smart homes in order to be able to build those houses. Food service, we already know that Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes has definitely been very popular with COVID. That's for sure. And they've definitely brought us through a few things. I know I've ordered when I'm home alone too, so just because it's nice and easy. But even, in manufacturing, we definitely hear about the automation and everything else like that. And jobs, it's not maybe they're gonna be continuing to change. And that's where we really need to look at what is the best way to do learning and do training and that upskilling and reskilling as we move forward through all of that.
Anyone else who wants to add to the technological changes? Yeah, Lara.
I'll jump in. So I'm in operations. So the area of RBC that I'm in is after you go to the branch or after you call us, the area I'm in is we do all the client request fulfillment work. So in some ways we kind of make the bank go. A lot of what you're talking about, automation, upskilling, reskilling, a lot of that's happening in my world. We've had folks who've been processing client requests for a number of years. Some of the steps previously were really basic. we automate the boring stuff, and then we upskill those folks so they can do the kickouts and the exceptions and the challenging work and more of the thought-based work. Whereas some of the automated, copy paste or, putting together a data so somebody can make that decision to decide whether we grant a client credit or not. That's something that we're looking to. That's where we want our skills to be. A couple other things, the robots. So we've done interesting, I guess, knowledge sharing, if you will, an anecdote as from one of our visits to Toyota. Those machines where people were previously on the floor assembling cars, they actually haven't hired less people, they've hired more people, but the shift is from the people assembling the cars to the people fixing the robots to assemble the cars and designing their processes around utilization of robots and utilization of automation. So some of that that skills work is still there, but it's just tweaked from where those skills are being applied and what roles those skills are being applied to. So yeah.
If I could jump in, please.
Yeah, Marla, absolutely.
Yeah, and I just want to echo what's been said. And we have to remember when we're looking at it that this isn't new. Since the dawn of time, new technology has come on, we have to adapt. Computers used to fill rooms. They'd fill a whole floor in a building to run a company. And now what we carry in our pockets and our phones is just unbelievable technology. But I think more so than ever now, with all this change that is now accelerated in a COVID world, is the importance of the human pieces that make it work. So to Laura's point, jobs aren't disappearing, the jobs are changing. I really love the example when you said, you're taking away, the boring parts and everything, and you're putting more value in. But more so than ever, especially to students and people who are embarking on new careers, is that your personal capital, your enthusiasm, you being a lifelong learner and staying on top of things, because change is the only constant that we have. And it is just going very, very fast right now. But, it has gone, since the Industrial Revolution, we are now in the fourth wave of it in terms of technology and how things work. As the world evolves, we have to evolve. And then to even one of the points earlier, it's this holistic approach that more than anything else, and I'm so glad you mentioned the Humans Wanted RBC report, because to me, humanity and human is the key in all of this. It is about people. Give everybody the support that they need to let them reach their maximum potential, and treat everybody as you wish to be treated and you would want your children, your parents, and everybody else treated. And that will help us fuel these inclusive workplaces. Have we had issues? Yes, we have, but we do know that issues bring about the greatest solutions, and they come from the strongest challenges, and we're poised on the edge of doing that yet again. And it is an exciting time amid all the uncertainty, but it's just like automation, the new digital world, and everything else. Be aware, stay informed, keep learning, and those human skills everyone's talking about, adaptability, decision-making, critical thinking, they are the tipping point for you to take you forward in your career. We can teach anyone how to do any technical skill, but to teach the attitude that goes with it is very, very difficult to do. So if there's one message that I want to put on the future of work, is more so than ever, attitude is the driver for success.
I love that. Write it down, everyone. Attitude is the driver for success. It's so true. I mean, and I hope, because I hear a lot of people that I interact with is that they so miss the connection with people, right? Having to work from home and feel a little more isolated, that connection is so important. And I hope that we move forward realizing the importance of that. So I also too, and Marla, we'll start with you since you're still up, about how schools or an industry can better prepare our students for the future of work. You talked a lot about what you just said there would answer this question, but anything else you can add to kick off a deeper conversation on it?
So I think pivotal for schools and education, more so than anything, is the lens of realism and the changing world. All of our education systems were built and designed in a world from long ago, and things have changed. So this idea, and Mary mentioned it, about micro certifications, micro credentials, employer informed training. Sometimes this box we've built in terms of what programs are like, it gets stale very, very quickly in times of rapid change. So I think it's very important that and you'll hear this cliche all the time, to be able to break out of the box, to try new things, and to see, in the end, it's all about for lack of a better term, customer satisfaction from an educational point of view. What do our employers need? We better make sure that we're supplying it, and not just what they need for today, but to have that visioning to see what they're going to need in 2025 and 2030. And it's a very exciting time right now because there are a lot of good funding dollars going into unique partnerships between school boards, colleges, universities, training organizations to build for this very much employer-informed, rapidly skill-changing system. And again, resiliency and adaptability are probably the key to it for anybody. And it's never going to go away, so time to get on board and drink the Kool-Aid.
Anyone else who wants to add sort of on that, the how to better prepare students for the future of work, how industry and the education system can support that?
I can. Oh, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just thought I would add to say that I know I've been following the reports coming out of Conference Board of Canada. They've been doing sort of weekly reports on this and what's happening, not just in the workplace, but somewhat as well in education. So, and from what I can see in terms of employment, right now, as we see the jobs that are coming out, there's a lot more part-time jobs and not full-time jobs. And part of that probably is that companies are worried about taking on full-time employees when they're uncertain about how things will go. And also, I think it's their approach to, sort of the recovery, how they're recovering. So I feel that we have to also, include within curriculum and training the idea that you may have to take on more than one part-time job at the beginning just to be able to make yourself, well, first of all, to make sure that you can feed your family and feed yourself and take care of things, because we're in such an sort of an uncertain time. But that's okay, because you're building your skill sets, you're building the things that you can do. And I think that as the other panelists had talked about, that there is a lot of change in terms of the new technology and the way that houses are being built and smart housing. So I already live in one of those, and I don't know how to operate some of those things. So imagine some of the technicians who come here don't know yet either, right? So that means there's not enough people have been trained to understand these homes, but this is the way they're going. I also think in healthcare, it'll be the same. Your doctor doesn't see you anymore. The doctor talks to me through my, my virtual Zoom. And I will imagine that this would happen in many of the trade fields. And one other thing that I have been following with the stats, that they've been tracking, is that women, we're talking about women, it concerns me a lot, is that women are not returning to the job market as fast as men are. And it has a lot to do with the situation that they're opting to stay with their children because they don't have any other choices, they believe. So I think employers, we have to be, and post-secondary, we have to be particularly careful about keeping an eye on that and asking questions, interrogating, why are we not seeing more women enter, and starting to put things in place to support them? Because, the latest studies I've read, this is the situation that a lot of women have had. It's basically, not much of a choice around childcare. And so they are the ones that are coming back into the workforce at a slower and lower rate than their counterparts. So I just wanted to add that to it in terms of what we need to look at in terms of, and I look at it as an equity issue, right? We can't ignore the fact that we're seeing less women enter, training in the trades as well. We have to look at aggressive methods of getting them there, sort of bridging the gap, closing the loop so that they feel supported.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maxine. Mary, did you want to add to this?
I was just going to add to Marla's thoughts. She mentioned that we can't teach attitude, but there are some things that we can teach at the post-secondary, and we can start there, even with equity, diversity, and inclusion. And as an Indigenous institution, we invite everybody to come and join us for training and come to our programs, that's for sure. And even in the trades programs that I look at or I look after, involving that cultural awareness right off the get-go, even in the classroom, and encouraging that in the workplace as they move forward to learn more. And so it's just little things that can be done even in the classroom that can help support that when they're going out into the workplace to be work ready.
Thanks, Mary. Leah, let's maybe talk about how you and then the group are adapting to work due to COVID, as well as some advice that maybe we can share with the entire group. But if you can just sort of share your perspective, how you've adapted and maybe some even the challenges that you've been faced with.
Yeah, me personally, I actually enjoy working from home, so the adaptation, me being able to adapt to this environment hasn't been overly onerous. It is challenging though to for my family because they see me home, and so mom's home, but really I'm not, right? So I think for the first couple of weeks there definitely was some challenges for them understanding that I was there but not there, especially for like my little one who's 7. She didn't quite understand. At one point I remember I opened this door and I literally had all 3 of them outside this door waiting for me. So that's been a challenge to be able to kind of put these hats now on and off very quickly, where before when I was at work, you know, of course things happen, like if you needed to be there for your family, but it's been really challenging to kind of go between the 2 worlds really quickly. That's something I've kind of noticed within my own personal experience. But if I think about on the other side is the professional experience, and I look at our knowledge keepers and our elders and our faculty, they've really been kind of having a challenge because of the inability to be able to connect with each other physically. And that's really important in some of our teachings and ceremonies. So I think I see some of our faculty members saying like they're just really trying to embrace this because it is what it is, right? We kind of have to get to that point, but really switching our mindset to always advocating for these spaces where we can be together and connect and to, you know, be in circle together, to now being virtual has been challenging. So not to say that there's not some gifts in this, because what we have found is the ability to share our resources amongst institutions, because I don't know if you know, but we do have a growing number of, maybe not a growing number, but actually reduction in our elders and our ability to have elders in our post-secondary institutions. And so we've partnered up with other institutions to share those resources. So there has been some wins and some opportunities that we've experienced professionally in our community as well.
Thanks, Leah. Anyone else on this topic that you want to add about sort of adapting to this new way of work? Yeah, Lara.
Yeah, so for me, the pandemic was a bit of a challenge the first couple of months. I have 2 kids under 12, and so being a mom and being an employee, there was a while where it was either I had a day where I was a bad mom or a bad employee, but I learned to, I sort of look at it, I learned a great metaphor a couple months ago, is that we all have these balls in the air, but the balls, we can't just look at them all as homogeneous balls in the air. Some are made of glass, some are made of plastic, some are made of rubber. So you really have to have a sense of what are the ones that are glass that you really, really have to keep an eye on. What are the ones that are plastic that might or might not break, or they might just, you know, go down and they'll just sit there. And the rubber balls are the ones that'll basically keep bouncing, that you don't really need to worry about too much. So, so just tweaking that focus and being aware that you're not going to get it perfect all the time, and to really, really be kind to yourself. I know as women, we have a lot of, you know, especially those of us who might have families or additional responsibilities, you've got a lot of emotions that you're investing into different things. And sometimes it can be overwhelming. So I think for me, and for others, it's been a continuous path in terms of being patient with myself and just changing my priorities. Because I'm not commuting, I've been able to double down on things like personal wellness and getting out there and getting more active, eating better, being, you know, I'm not tempted by a food court anymore. I don't work downtown Toronto anymore. So, you know, just making those better choices has been a lot easier because I've got a bit more of that. I don't want to say I have more time in the day, but the time has shifted, and slowing down. I've really embraced slowing down, which is great. So I'm juggling, but a little bit slower.
I think for many, it's either that they've gained the COVID-19 or they've lost COVID-19, depending on their eating and physical activity habits, right? We could do one or the other. Anyone else who wants to just talk about adapting to work through COVID-19, or we can move on to the next question, but I just wanted to see if anyone else had some perspective to add there beforehand. Yeah, Makeda.
With me, due to COVID, at the beginning of COVID, we shifted from office work to home working. And when we got to the end of March, I was put on temporary leave. And till a day like today, I'm still on temporary leave. So that in itself was a big adjustment for me, because I was accustomed of going to work every day on a busy schedule, trying to balance everything. And then now I'm there, have nothing to do, wondering like, what do I do today? I'm accustomed of getting up early and I know I have to go to work. Then I'm up, I'm like, what should I do today? But luckily with OACETT, we got that kind of, we got support from OACETT, where I've been keeping myself busy from then. So OACETT has been providing us with continuous professional development courses all through COVID. Every Wednesday they have speakers come, they speak to us we have Zoom meetings and stuff, webinars. They provided that for us, so that kept me busy. Then we also had, I've been active with OACETT, planning those things, and also been active speaking to other people, giving people some kind of support. Also some students, where now I've taken on the responsibility of tutoring a 13-year-old AutoCAD. So that's something I've been doing just to keep me active. So it's just that it takes a lot of strain on you mentally. But then in this whole situation, the main thing is about thinking positive. A lot of people ask me, why are you always so positive? I'm like, for you to get, as she said earlier on, the attitude to success is a positive attitude. So I've been very positive through this entire thing, and I'm trying to share that energy with a lot of people right now, though I'm in the situation where nobody wants to be in, but I'm trying to be that beacon of hope to others, where they feel like, yes, you're in that situation, but you have to take the best out of it instead of thinking of the negative and making it pull you down. So I just want to tell everybody out there who's going through the struggle, think positive, keep yourself busy, take that time, that downtime to improve on yourself, work on those skills that you think that you're weak at. Do that, because I've been doing that. Public speaking is one of the things that I don't like, but I've been trying for this whole COVID thing to do it. So that's one of the good things I took out of it. So just keep a positive attitude to the entire thing. Though you're going through that rough time, stay positive.
Oh, really great advice there. And also too, bringing up professional organizations. Like there's a lot of organizations out there that can help people to support them through situations like this. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, and looking for ways you can volunteer. You know, I know that there's a lot of people whose part-time jobs have ended, that there isn't work for them right now, but there's other ways to sort of contribute and give back to society in a different way that you maybe wouldn't have normally been exposed to. So that was really great. And Makeda, what got you here too? Like, how about we talk about how education will change with the future of work? Because I think you brought up some great ideas there, like workshops, some continuing education. There's so many different things. So what do you see from your perspective as far as education goes with the future of the work world?
I think the future of the work world, they need to have more continuous learning, because as we, in this technology age, as we go on, there's more development, more upgrades. We have to keep on educating ourselves as to keeping ourselves abreast to what's going on with the technologies in whatever field that we are in. That is one of the challenges that a lot of employees and employers have to go through right now, where persons, they're not so tech savvy. So then now they have to try to force themselves to get into that mode of doing online classes, online meetings, And I'm right now I'm seeing one of the things that I'm seeing with the online streaming and online Zooms and all that. At this point, some people are getting frustrated with it. They want the human touch, the human connection, and they're not getting that. So I think another thing we need to educate people when it comes to dealing with those kinds of situations, because a lot of people in the workplace, they're more based on getting work done, but they don't have the emotional aspect of it, how to deal with it emotionally. And that's one of the things I really admired about OACETT, where they actually gave us that kind of support, where they had webinars about how to deal with COVID, how to adjust from working in the office and working at home. So all those things we need to start educating people about. Those, and even that can be considered a soft skill as well, because you need to be dealing with things emotionally. And that in itself is something that a lot of people do not have those skills. Because some people, especially those in the technology, some of them, like some people will say like the nerds, some of them are not that sociable. They're normally introverts. So we have to try to prepare persons for those kind of things, because a lot of people, they depend on having that human connection. And right now, we don't have that. Right now, a lot of people are at their home. Some of them are at their home by themselves, and they don't know how to deal with it. So that's one of the things that I think that's something we should start educating people about. That's one of the skills that I think the college themselves should be incorporating in the curriculum, dealing with that social effect.
Yeah, this is a really good topic of discussion. Anyone else, I'm sure, to add to the question of how will education change with the future of work? Thanks, Makeda.
You're welcome.
All right. Anyone else want to jump in here?
Sure, I'll jump in.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Mary.
We're kind of seeing it already, with the COVID and everything, because we've had to just kind of switch to virtual. And I honestly think that even in the trades, that's probably not ever going to go away again. It's going to get better, but it's probably never going to exactly go away. So that's something that we have to really think about as educators, as well as how we're going to deal with that. And as Makeda said, you know what I mean? People are getting frustrated because they're overusing Zoom or overusing whatever platform. I think I've probably used 5 different platforms, depending on, you know what I mean? And you have to learn them all too. So it's quite interesting. So yeah, and just the way education is going to be broken down, and finding those different career pathways, like Marla and I were both talking about micro-credentials, you know what I mean? And how that's going to, how does that equate into credentials, and how does that equate into full careers and things like that? Is it, you know what I mean? What is that kind of pathway? How are those stackable and things like all those fun words that are now coming out? We have to consider, and people need to understand how do they get to their career path through those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, very good point, because of like so many changes have happened, and they happen so quickly, right? Like, 1 minute we're all at school or in our work environment, and then all of a sudden we're at home. We think it's gonna be a couple of weeks, and it's been 8 months. So I think, but out of this, some very positive change potentially for education, but it'll be finding that balance, because there's so much, especially when it comes to, I think, skilled trades, but even in the technology sector, where you need that hands-on learning, where it's not as accessible when you're doing it from home. So anyone want to speak about that?
I just wanted to add that I feel that the way that education will probably progress is not, none of us have real answers yet. I think it's experimentation, but before, where we've had instructors and professors who have a sort of let's say it's been a design that it's just, that's how it is, where there's no need to change it because that's how it is, and this is the way that it's going to be evaluated. This is going to be the outcome, and that sort of set way of doing things, I think, is going to change. Well, it has changed. It will, there's lots to do from the legal end of things as well, and learning more about how we're going to, how we're going to be able to put courses together. I think that will change. I agree with, I think it was Mary that was saying this, that, the trades and the way that'll happen will probably still continue in a similar fashion, because they have to be, there are lots of aspects of it that's face to face. But I just feel the way we've been through it at Mohawk now, and I've seen how it has created, let's just say we've had to be creative in making sure that the students get the competencies they need out of the courses, and they get the hands-on experience they need to get. We've had to start building in some virtual types of experiences along with the hands-on. I just think that the AR, VR aspect is going to get built into a lot of programs, including trades, just because there's some places, some areas where, I think we're going to say, I think this could be done if we could give you a virtual experience of this and then get you in there to do some practical work. I feel that this is going to take more, become more of the practice within many programs where we have to inject some other ways of experiencing your learning, so that everything is not just through virtual and online, but that while it still won't be face-to-face, it'll be the next best thing to face-to-face. Look at the astronauts and how they learn how to manage, build, repair their spaceships. They do it through AR, VR. So they're not actually up there, but they're practicing through that technology. So I think that there's going to be more of that. And I just see that happening more and more, and just being creative in how we do get people to, students to develop the competencies they need.
I could jump in for a second. One of the other things to remember, and those are all phenomenal points, is let's talk specifically about trades in the apprenticeship system. We are only getting students for about 10% of their education anyway. 90% of it's on the job. So the idea about AR, VR, and rich simulations where you can actually go and, you can change a part out, you can feel the difference in the torque on a wrench in these well-defined design systems. And this is very, very much a part of the future and leading the way. There is also something to be said, and I think what we've learned very, very quickly is that this jump to having to go online for so many of the theoretical aspects has empowered learners, and I'm going to say especially empowered a lot of women, because, and not to disregard any of the males sitting here, but ladies, we all know what the double duty is in the world. And we live it where not only have you got responsibility to do your job and work, which is more challenging, as pointed out, when you're home and you don't have that separation, but then you've got the responsibility for the family and everything else that goes on around it, which is shifting as well. We're getting smarter partners thanks to the smart people who've raised them, but it's that whole part of it. So one of the things that we noticed in some of our access programming is all of a sudden, instead of being in that traditional paradigm of, school will be, daylight hours, we've created programs where we're recording them and people can learn when and where they want. So we've always had that as a premise with online learning, but we've never had to take it to this degree where it has to be a turnkey. So as a result, we're getting, 30, 40, 50 people who are signing up for some of these programs that we're running, which, by the way, for a system really aren't at any additional cost to us, because once we do it for one, we do it for 50, and they're learning and they're managing the learning at their own pace and time. So when the kids go to bed at night, on a weekend, on a Sunday, when they have a break, everybody's watching football, or in between, when I do it, in between football quarters. But that's part of it as well. It's just changing the face of how and when we learn, and that's going to be very important going forward. Our apprenticeship system, if you think about it, has been years ahead of the curve. Let's learn by doing it on the job, where we're being paid, where we're being supported, and we're supporting our families getting that paycheck. So it's going to be interesting to see how we can help shape that evolution of apprenticeship. And then maybe that's a model that has to carry over into some other areas. So instead of schooling being this block of, 1, 2, 4, 6, or whatever years, there's more time spent on application that's put out in the workforce, that's productive, that's giving value to employers, and also giving that good hands-on learning opportunity. So very exciting times, I think, coming up for education across the board.
Terrific perspective. Love it. Marla. Mary, did you want to add to that?
I just wanted to add to the hands-on and the work integrated learning, because I think that's really important to note, because although we're moving to a lot of virtual, that work integrated learning is actually going to be very important, and it's going to be important for more and more careers. And so as Marla said, you know, apprenticeship is a great model and it's been around since forever. And it hasn't just been with 144 trades, which is what Ontario has right now, you know what I mean? So, you know, there's so much more that can be done with work integrated learning, and in a creative fashion too. It doesn't have to mean co-ops for 8 months or anything like that. It could be, you know, smaller chunks, going out and visiting employers or vice versa, or just, you know, learning on a piece of equipment that is at an employer's place of work instead of at the shop at a school, right? So like Marla said, employers or excuse me, the educators are going to have to get just as creative as the employers are. So
Yeah, but having that flexibility, I think, opens the doors to so many opportunities for people, and especially as you mentioned, to women. So maybe this will be the turning point, you know, where we see more and more women come into the field of trade and skilled trades and technology. So I want to flip it back over to you, Lara, and it sort of ties in with this conversation and what you spoke of earlier when we were talking about, or when you were speaking about the essential skills and knowledge for professionals in the future. You were talking about those soft skills and things like that. So I want to open that conversation up again, because I've heard many people talk about, what about those soft skills? How are people going to learn these now? Like we're all stuck at home. So let's revisit that, and we'll start with you.
Okay, yeah. So I just want to tie back to something briefly about work integrated learning. So RBC is really big on that. Our president and CEO Dave Mackay is really focused on, and in part through Future Launch, to say how can we get more students work experience. And I know at Mohawk College is doing an amazing job on that front, but just even across the board, even with tech, I know there's some high schoolers here. We have a summer tech program offered to high school, which is usually, it's a little unusual because it's only 2 months. So my partners on the technology side, we have a high school summer tech labs program. Applications open up in March, and we take about anywhere between 30 to 50 high school students for June and July, and we give them full training, mentorship, skill building. It's a really great way that we're help solving for women in tech. Because by the time they hit university or college or whatever post-secondary institution, if they aren't exposed to it in some cases at the high school level, they're not making those decisions. They might not discover it until they're partway through their post-secondary education. So with our summer tech labs program, we're really trying to address that. And just in terms of work integrated learning experience, in our co-ops, our internships, whatever the program may be, we're really focused on providing those soft skills, right? And in some cases, our roles are mostly soft skills based. We want to look at the communication and the collaboration. I can't stress enough how beneficial it is to not just get work experience, but also to help augment it with volunteering experience. You're going to learn a ton of project management skills, time management skills, communication, even if you're running a side hustle or you're helping a friend with their side hustle or their startup or their business. Not just focusing on school and co-ops and those things, but if you're able to, if your calendar and your mental ability gives you the bandwidth to do extra, I recommend it. It gives, a lot of employers are looking for those well-rounded, community-minded people. And so those skills are really valuable, and you're gonna, in any environment, in any volunteer work, collaborative environment, you're going to learn those soft skills. And the more you get exposed to those different environments and different opportunities, the more you're going to be able to flex those muscles and get that going. Just one other thing I wanted to add. Yeah, we're really focused on flexibility. Emotional intelligence is going to get you a long way. Like I'm one of those classic people who's an accidental banker. And my ability to be curious, my ability to ask questions, my wanting to understand, you know, what comes before me and what comes after me, especially when I was early in my career and processing client requests, having that curiosity and wanting to understand the big picture is a really great skill. being able to look a little bit more than your current view and wanting to understand the bigger picture is also great. But just being adaptable and willing to try new things, it's so important, especially if you're in high school, early in your career, even partway through your career. You're going to learn from failure. You're going to learn from making mistakes versus getting it right all the time. So expose yourselves to being that vulnerable, being authentic, and trying new things.
Great, thanks, Lara. Anyone else on this? This is such a great topic, and I love you bringing up failures, because you learn so much when you fail at something. Like it's a big fear. I don't want to, you know, but you come out of it on the other side a better person. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. So anyone else that wants to add to sort of that, the essential skills and knowledge for professionals in the future of work? We got a lot more questions, so it's okay if no one has anything else to add here. Oh, all right. We shall move on as my dogs bark. I was waiting for that. You know, I was doing so well tonight. I thought, oh, good. They're being good, and then not so much now. So hopefully they'll quiet down. That is one great thing about working virtually, right? You can't always control your environment. Okay, so let's talk now. Leah, I think I'll put this one out your way, about how do we ensure that workplaces are equitable, diverse, and inclusive in the future? What are some of the things that we can start to do, that we can be thinking about, you know, to make those changes happen?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to specifically speak, of course, from an Indigenous perspective, and something that, you know, we often do bring up is how we prepare for Indigenous employees coming to your organization or possibly hiring them. And one thing that I always say is that, you know, we are the highest growing population, so it's going to happen. And how do we prepare for that? One of the things, kind of thinking about having more equitable, is really thinking about how you support not just Indigenous employees, but probably employees overall, with regards to their needs for ceremony or family commitments, and being flexible. And I think that's one thing that I keep hearing echoed throughout this evening, is the need for that flexibility, and that this has actually brought that ability to be able to do so, so that, you know, we could stop and start and pick up the children or connect in that way. So I think the flexibility is going to be really important, and to really kind of challenge your traditional mindset on what the workplace looks like, because we all know now it is possible to work from home and be productive and to make connections. And so I think that would be something I would think about, is just really being adaptable to, you know, to your workforce, would be my thought.
Thank you. Anyone else on this? This is a good topic. So if you want to, Lara, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that there's been a lot of conversation this year, particularly. I know RBC's been really big. We didn't, you know, diversity was one of our core values, and in the last few years, D and I was part of it. Like we couldn't have diversity without the inclusion. So the conversation, we've been having those conversations, but even more so this year. And I think just you know, it literally is from the top down. We've been mandated to look more actively at our leadership, not just executive leadership, but middle management, and creating those opportunities for BIPOC individuals across the board. And just starting the conversation, making it top of mind of everybody, sort of, including me as a manager of early talent, and ensuring that as a program, we're more actively going to different associations and different avenues to actively look for that diverse talent. You know, we've been mandated to hire 40% BIPOC individuals. I'm grateful to say that we hit that number in my area of RBC. We hit that this summer, but it wasn't deliberate. It was accidental. So what we're trying to do is make it more deliberate and have those conversations and engage folks with different perspectives in terms of how we can connect to those communities and bring them in. So part of it is just having that conversation and having those open dialogues. That's one way to get things started, is to have these types of events and start asking these questions and bringing things to the forefront.
Thank you.
If I can just add to that, Lara, I will say that at Mohawk, they've actually done a really great job at coming to us and asking us, how do we reach, you know, your community? and how do we do it in a good way? And they've been really great at kind of reaching out to us to ensure that we are reaching those populations that typically might not see, for example, even the vice president position, making sure that it is accessible and known to community members so that they would have the opportunity to apply to be part of our team, not just at the frontline level, but definitely the executive level. So I just wanted to add to that, but thank you for bringing that up.
Maxine?
Yeah, I can add to what Leah has mentioned here as well. I think maybe as Lara, in that it's one thing to open the front door and to say that, you know, which one of our very big equity commitments is to look at that talent pipeline for diverse individuals, for, you know, racialized Black, Indigenous folks especially. And, you know, we sort of have target groups, if I could call it that, or some priority groups that look at women as well, and people with disabilities and folks who identify as queer. And to ensure that we are closing the gap, but also that when people come in the front door, that the environment is supportive, it's equitable, it's inclusive. Because you can open your front door, but your back door is very busy too, because people leave when they're in an environment which is hostile or not friendly, not supportive. So, you know, you have to be very careful and keep your eye on that and interrogate and look at the systems that cause people to feel unsafe and not welcome in an environment. And you really want to spend time understanding how to make someone feel, you know, like they belong, like this is the place I should be. I feel respected. I feel included. My voice is heard. I see my work represented. I'm at the decision-making table. I feel like I'm important because I am being, you know, respected, and for my my credentials, my knowledge, my perspective. Those are really important factors as part of the system that you put in place to make sure it's equitable. I think you always have to pay attention to that, what's happening. And one of the other things I do advise organizations to do, if you have a deficit in the number of individuals of a particular group that is not in your organization, not represented, by hiring only one person that you think is going to fill that void, you're also creating a hostile environment for them because they have no support. And I encourage them to do group hiring. Hire people in groups so that they have support when they come in. They have support through the orientation. They have support through their progression, you know, so that they have people to talk to who they can voice concerns to, and they don't feel alone. And so I think there's a lot of strategies you need to put in place to make this work and to make it meaningful. So I just wanted to add that.
If I can just add one more thing, Maxine, thank you for bringing that up too. I mean, it's just sparked so much great conversation. But also, you know, you mentioned something that kind of sparked a thought for me is when you're talking about racialized or, you know, areas or of population, is when you have these leadership tables, it's really important to, you know, not just to have the one, right? And so having one representative at a table for leadership sometimes also hinders the conversation, because sometimes when you're the only one at the table, and let's just say women, for example, just to kind of not make it so Indigenous focused it feels, you know, making sure that there's other women at that table so they can empower and support that voice and uplift one another is really helpful too, especially when you are a minority and you're sitting at that table, and encouraging your colleagues, if you're not one of those groups, to have their voice heard at that table. So thank you, Maxine, for bringing that up. I really appreciate that.
So we talk there about employers and work environments, but let's expand this a little bit more and talk about how as a society can we support an equitable, diverse, and inclusive landscape with the future of work. So Maxine, I was going to direct this to you again, just to get the conversation started. So when we take a look at it from, you know, from a society perspective, let's carry the conversation from there.
Okay. I believe that, and we're seeing a lot of these issues now. You know, the protesting that began in the U.S. after the killing of, well, not just George Floyd, but that certainly set things off around the world. It gave people a deeper understanding of how structural racism works, how structural gender inequity works. They started to understand. And so the conversations around the world in communities are about the structural oppression that happens for, you know, around women and gender issues and race and racialization, you know, anti-indigenous racism, around, you know, anti-Muslim racism. Like it started the conversation in the community, and it's a good thing because we have an ability now to be able to speak with each other freely about the issues that are actually affecting the community in general. And it probably, for communities, you know, where they have high hate crime numbers and hate activity, I think that galvanizing a community together, this has become very helpful in them trying to eradicate, you know, oppression, whether it's because of race or gender or religion, or sexual orientation. The thing is that the conversations are happening. And I think as a society, you know, we need to work together as individual organizations. Definitely as a place of employment, there's a responsibility, but you want to know that your society, where you live, where you work, where you play, where you enjoy, where you're raising your children, that it's a place where they can be themselves, where they can be accepted as themselves, and where they, you know, these issues around privilege and power need to be dismantled. And I think that the sort of younger population, the young people now, this is what they're talking about. This is how they are seeing their role as confronting, you know, the issue of oppression, the issues of racism, and how they want to live in the world. And the other thing that I found really intriguing, that I really like, that I felt like I was the lone voice talking about it, but young people have taken this on, and this is around sustainability, climate change. They want to make sure they're living in a world that's going to be a healthy place, that, you know, that we haven't destroyed everything. And they're now digging in and saying you need to stop and look at sustainability and look at the fact that we need to be here, our children need to be here. And, you know, I think that if we take the indigenous mindset around preparing the world and making decisions that are 7 generations out, then you're really doing the job that you should be doing and taking care of the community. Many African communities think the same way when you look at the continent, and how they also look at how you deal with the land and how you deal with life. And I think that this is a conversation. I believe it's going to happen more and more. It's going to become embedded into all the educational systems. Post-secondaries are looking at this now, that as a society, this is bigger. This is bigger than an organizational issue. And lots of organizations, I think this is what RBC is doing basically, is they're stretching out beyond their borders of their work and looking at their responsibility around sustainability, their responsibility of treating people well, of their responsibility around upholding human rights and equity, and making sure that that is something that, you know, you're living it and you're espousing to it, that, you know, one group of people cannot be the ones who are the beneficiaries of everything. That does not make a good, healthy community. We have to look at how does everyone benefit in a community, and start to dismantle those barriers, those structural barriers. And in Canada, let's be honest, they are built into our system because of laws. The laws put them in place. Whereas in many other countries of the US, it's not the law. People did that to each other. But here we actually made it legal to discriminate. And I think this is why we need, as a society, to educate. Education is so important. A lot of people are ignorant to this information, and I think educational institutions need to have core courses that you're going to while you might have your, you graduate in whatever area it is. One of the core programs or courses you need to take is learning the history of your community, historical issues around Indigenous issues, the issue around slavery, and how the country was built through, whether it's enslavement or it's built on, what do you call it, colonization. We need to educate people, because it's not about blaming, it's about reality. This is what happened, and this is how we got here. And then now here's what we're going to do about it, because we want to build a society where everyone thrives and everyone does well. So I feel that I think we'll see more and more of this as a community and a societal responsibility, in terms of building, a better place for people, who, to raise families and to see that there is a future, and that it's no longer about individualization. It is about a community. That's what I believe. So I'm going to leave the floor for someone else to speak, though, because I could talk all night on this.
Oh, thanks, Maxine. Always incredible perspective. We do have a couple of questions that people have put forward to be asked, but I want to finish with this topic first. If there's anyone that wanted to add to what Maxine was speaking on there, or if not, I'll pull in some of the participant questions. So we good? Anyone? Oh, we look good. All right. Okay, so here's a question. Got to pull it back up here. Hold on a minute. This is from Rebecca. Any advice specifically for students or mid-career people that you can give? So anyone can start with this. So specifically advice for students or mid-career people on the workforce moving forward.
I'll jump in.
Mary.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Why not? We talked a lot about it, but keep learning. Like, there's always more to learn. As you move along in your career, you may find that you're going to maybe move sideways sometimes, or move up, or it just depends on what's going on. But just keep learning, and it doesn't have to be formal learning. Just or going back to school. It can be just by reading something, or expanding your knowledge with your employer. But just keep learning.
I'll jump in on
Yeah,
that.
just jump in, guys. Yep, perfect.
Yeah, to add what Mary said, I would say be open. Maybe less so in the trades, but I run into a lot of students who are like, well, does this align to my career? And for those especially who are just new or recent grads or about to graduate, do you really know what your career is going to be? Like, just because you studied something, and again, I know this is probably less so in the trades, but generally speaking, just because you studied something, is that the thing you're going to do forever? Nope. No. So I think you need to be really, and again, it's about failing fast and learning from those failures, or don't think of it as a failure. Just think of it as a mistake, right? Like, you tried something, it didn't work. What did you learn? Okay, so how can you apply that learning to something else? And just being open to that journey. You're not going to always get it right the first time. And something else, I think a lot of people, they put a lot of self-imposed stress and worry and concern. You can only make decisions based on the information that you have right now. You're gonna do your best to make decisions for yourself, for your family, for your relationships, whatever. But be kind to yourself. You can only make that decision based on what you know now. It might be an awesome decision. It might be something that you kind of like, oh, maybe this wasn't the best choice, but that's okay. Again, you're learning as you grow. It's as long as you're continuously learning, you're continuously trying, you're willing to put yourself out there, you're always going to learn how to do things better. Makeda's a perfect example. I saw Leah's statement. I think she's doing great at public speaking today too. So keep it up, Makeda. But yeah, so I would say try to be open that that might be organic. It's not going to necessarily be a straight line, and just to be kind to yourself and be willing to go along with that journey. You never know where it's going to take you.
If I can jump right in, it does apply to the trades too. Just because you start out on the tools doesn't mean you're going to end up there by the end of your career. So, Just a thought.
Another thing, can I start? Another thing I would like to add is for the young persons getting into the field of technology and trades, especially young women. It's a reality when you enter into the workforce. They will be the men that will try to discourage you along the way. All I'd like to let you know that you need to keep that positive attitude, remember why you got into the field, and just keep focused. We all have to remember that. They will try to discourage you. Because when I first started, when I left school, when I did my first corp, and then the employer asked me, what do you want to do in the field? I said, I want to go into project management. He told me off the bat that you will not survive in that field. Think of something else. So they will try to discourage you, but just keep focused, keep a positive attitude, and do what you have to do to get where you want to be. That's all I'd like to add. Thanks.
Thanks, Makeda. We'll get in one more question, I hope. So Jess asked, and this is interesting to think about. Do you think that the prevalence of technology and baby boomers retiring, there will be a disruption in your field? So in the field, I would assume she was just referring to skilled trades and technology. What are your thoughts on that one? Lara, can we start with you?
I was thinking. So I think, yeah, we're seeing a huge shift with the baby boomers who are going off and retiring, right? There's roles that are coming up. There's going to be less young people in 10 years, right? It's those in the workforce. There's going to be possibly a shortage depending on what the roles are. So I think as baby boomers and those lovely folks who get Freedom 55 sooner than later get to retire early, it's going to be opening up more positions. I think as employers and maybe to some extent schools, we need to be really careful about that talent pipeline, that we're not losing that knowledge, right? When these well-tenured folks are retiring, they're taking a lot of knowledge with them. So we need to make sure that that knowledge is being transferred to maybe folks in their 40s and folks in their 30s, and it's going down through the decades of ages and experience. So I think it's something we need to continue to be deliberate about. I think to some extent we're definitely doing that at RBC, but in some ways too, we try to also make things that the absence of one person doesn't make the rest of whatever fall down, right? That knowledge isn't uniquely owned and housed in that one brain, that we can maybe distribute some of that knowledge. And then because you never know, when you're not going to be able to show up to work tomorrow for whatever reason, right? It be a family issue or a personal issue or a medical issue. We never know if we're going to wake up tomorrow and be able to be our present and available selves. So I think we also just have to think about that talent pipeline and how we're sharing that knowledge and how we're continuing on in terms of developing and growing that knowledge base.
All right. Any last comments that you have on all the different topics and things we spoke about? I mean, there was a question, but I think, you did touch upon it, and that's the balance that so many women have had to take on, in the sense of balancing work and the home environment with kids being at home learning and just being around. And mom's home, so I've got to ask her a bunch of things. So I don't know if anyone wants to sort of wrap up the last bit there of finding that balance in your life in general. And then I'm going to throw it over to Liz to begin to wrap up. So any last comments on that you want to get out? Because we just touched upon it, really didn't get into anything in depth. Yes, Lara, you can start. Thank you.
I think it's like anything, either from project management perspective or time management perspective. I think as you're trying to find that balance, you have to continuously and ruthlessly prioritize, right? What are my priorities today? What are my priorities this week? And make sure you're planning those things, because I find personally, if it doesn't end up on the calendar, it doesn't happen. So whether it be an informal coffee chat with a colleague I used to see all the time on the floor, and now I never see anymore unless I book them. It's like anything. So whether it be your workout or getting to bed or eating that meal or connecting with friends or getting your schoolwork done, or whatever your side project is, you've got to plan it. Sometimes it's really boring to have to schedule your life, but I think if you really want to be back to that metaphor of balancing those balls and juggling those balls, you've got to figure out which ones are the glass ones, which ones are the plastic ones, and which one are the rubber ones. And again, be kind to yourself. You're not going to get it right every time, but at least putting forth that effort and knowing that you've done your best to figure out things. And sometimes it's best to just strip it back. Sometimes you realize you've just got too much going on. I think sometimes as women, we also find it hard to say no. And you don't want to pass on opportunities, but it's saying no to the right things, and just making sure you've got your perspective there in terms of what your personal priorities are. Not everybody's going to always agree with them, and I think to Makeda's point, you can't be discouraged by others. So just keep that passion and keep it focused as much as you can.
I'll just add something personal, but I was a single mom growing, raising my kids, working full time, going to school. So I really, relate to those balls and which ones are glass and which ones are plastic. I think at one time all of them were glass, so who knows what's happening. But but that experience has also taught me a lot that I can apply to work, and I think that's really important, because you end up finding balance in a different way. And yeah, really just keep going with that and just keep trying it. As everybody has said today, fail and fail again. You know what I mean? It's the best way that you can figure out what to do right and what to do wrong. And my kids are still alive, so I couldn't have done something that wrong. So we'll just stick with that.
Yeah, I wanted just to add that self-care is super important. It's so easy to get sucked in because basically I'm living at work just like everybody else. And you have to recognize that, because what's happened is for those of us who are fortunate enough to be able to work from home, as I said, there's a lot of people who haven't. They've got to still get to work and work in precarious situations, or they don't have a job at all. But even while we are working from home, so easy to get yourself working 24/7, because you feel like you're living at your job. And you have to, like, as I think as my other colleagues have just said here, is be very um, careful and specific and clear about the things you need to do for yourself, whether that's meditating, having a bath, like a soak, time to like refresh your mind and your body. It's very important. Taking a walk, just sitting, on your porch with a cup of tea or something, or, you know, whatever you drink. But just a time for yourself is really super important. So you don't get sucked in and become, work becomes everything, and that, you have different things you need to do with your life. It's important. But I also want to mention that what's on my mind a lot are some of our students who are in these situations, and especially those who have, are away from home, still on their own by themselves, that we need to find ways to reach out to students. I know there's some great faculty who are doing that, like checking in with their students. They don't have to do it, but they do it because they know the situations that some of their students are in all by themselves, struggling through, not having support. So, even if sorry, I guess it was Mary that said, or someone, Mary or Leah or someone said, or Lara, maybe you all said it, but just find a moment. I think it was Lara. Just find that 5 minutes to call someone, just to say, hey, I've been thinking about you. How are you doing? It's my coffee break or whatever for 5-10 minutes. I think you'll lift people's spirits and you'll relax a bit. And then lastly, do not sit in your chair all day long. You've got to get up and walk around your house, do your stairs a couple times, so that your body isn't just sitting in a, sort of in that position where you're, it's very unhealthy, really. So even if it's walking around the house, for 5 minutes, you need to do that. So you're not stuck in this chair. Actually, it feels comfortable. You don't realize what you're doing. But I just thought I'd remind people, get up and walk around once every hour, and or sit and stand, whatever it is, but just move around. So that's what I'd like to share.
Thanks, Maxine. I think that's a really great place to end, because it says so much about the new world of work for so many of us that are having to work from home, not going into an office space. Get up, move around, do things for yourself. Great conversation tonight. We're not quite done, but I'm always good with checking time. So I know we're getting close to 6 o'clock. So I'd like to now introduce you to Liz Martin. She's the Associate Dean of Electrical and Computer Engineering at Mohawk College and the leader of our Women in Technology and Trades group.
Well, thanks, Linda. And in the interest of time, I will keep things pretty brief, but I just wanted to offer my sincerest thanks to all the panelists and speakers, as well as everyone who attended this session. I think what we've learned throughout the session is that the future of work is really positive and enriching. So I guess that's the first thing I'd like to just mention, and that there's immense opportunities if we keep that forward-focused mindset and look at the soft skills and creating flexible work. And also speak to the unique perspective that we need to have to ensure that we have a diverse workforce that feels safe and supported. And I really am grateful for everyone who participated in this event, including the guys and those who don't identify as women, because I think what we hear throughout all of the stories here is it's not just about empowering women, it really is about empowering everyone and creating the lens of diversity that appreciates the value that every person brings to the conversation. So thank you for participating. And I think, I'm gonna call back on Marla's words earlier in the session and just say that lens that as the world evolves, we need to evolve. I think that speaks volumes to where we are right now with COVID. And I think that it also speaks volumes as to what the task at hand is moving forward. It's not enough not just to present opportunities to women. We also have to make sure that we have the right attitudes in place as institutions, as a community, and that we're driving forward those initiatives to ensure that there is access and support when people enter in those fields. So thank you for that. I'd also like to just kind of touch quickly upon some of the ways that you can continue to be part of this community and this dialogue as we move forward. So one of the things that a number of the speakers mentioned was the idea of this lifetime learning process, the idea of upskilling yourself. And we do have opportunities at the college to get engaged through continuing education or through taking a micro-credential course of some kind, if there's something you want to explore along those lines. We do have an active AR/VR program. So as was mentioned, we're starting to see how do we create those experiential learning opportunities for students in an authentic way if we're all virtual. So there's lots of different ways you can get involved with AR/VR. And also just in terms of micro-credentialing, it seems to be the hot topic of the day, because we know that sometimes you need to upskill very quickly, and sometimes it's not feasible to step away from your real world life and focus solely on going back to school. And sometimes a micro-credential offers you the opportunity for the upskilling without a complete reset or pause. So just some things to consider. And if you do find that you're looking for any information on any of those topics, feel free to reach out to Mohawk College through our Women in Technology and Trades program, and we can put you in contact with the right people. And I also just wanted to kind of put a shout out to those who might be considering how you'd like to get engaged with WiTT. So we have a Women in Technology and Trades website that you can go to. We are actively looking for young women within Mohawk College who would like to be part of our leadership team for students. So it's not a very big ask. Usually we're looking for people who want to run an event or work on a kit with us. There's about 5 or 6 different ways you could get involved. But we are actively seeking to connect with you. And because we're virtual this year, it's a little bit harder to do that. So if you do have an interest in getting involved with that leadership team, let me know. And then the other thing I'll mention is that we have a really great way for students, both at the college level and the high school level, as well as their families, to get involved in a kind of fun activity. We have a competition that we're calling the Rube Goldberg competition, where you develop an at-home machine that does something. And if that's kind of tweaked your interest, maybe check out our website. But and you can participate as an individual, or you can sign up and do it with your family. But we're going to have this competition ends on November 20th, so look soon. And there are awards associated with this for the best submissions from the high school level and the best submissions from the college level. So have a look at that. There's some fantastic prizes, and we're hoping that we can get the best machines involved. We're going to have a celebrity set of panelists who will gauge how well you've done and see how much design thinking you've put into figuring out how to move something across the table. The final thing I just wanted to say is that, without the support of RBC and others in the community, and I just want to speak out, Makeda has been at every event that we've had at WiTT for the last 2 years, and I really appreciate the support we've had through OACETT. And, without the funding through RBC, Lara, we would still be kind of doing this off the corner of our desks. So we're very grateful for the support. Mary, in terms of our interactions and engagement with Polytechnic and with P-Tech Academy, we really are trying to reach out and support the Indigenous community. Part of the challenge is that there is a little bit of an air gap in terms of working women in these fields. And so it is really important that we continue to support young women in entering. I really love the idea of a group hire or something like that so that you create communities of support. But even if you can't do that because you can't find 3 women to hire in the field, hiring one and trying to create that community or culture of opportunity and looking to help individuals speak, it speaks measures to the person. And so I just kind of leave that as a parting thought that, if we all walk away from this and the one thing we do is look for one more way to create a community that's more open and more accepting, I think we'll have a tremendous ripple effect on those around us and on the workforce that we're trying to empower. So I'll stop there and would just like to thank you once again for attending and for the write-in comments as well. And we really look forward to seeing you again at our next event in March, where we're actually going to be focused on the way technology is helping mental health and wellness.
Well, thanks so much, Liz. And thank you for all the work that you do and your team. Lucas Robinson especially put a lot of work into this to get this together tonight. And it came off so well. You guys are all amazing. And thank you, of course, to our panelists, Maxine, Marla, Lara, Leah, Makeda, and Mary, for your incredible perspective and your insights. I'm just looking down. It's like, learn from mistakes. Don't be afraid to fail. Flexibility is important. The willingness to learn, adaptability, positive attitude, all these things that they've been tested and true for years and years and years and years, and they will be moving forward. So thanks to all of you for joining us. And once again, yes, a special thank you to RBC for supporting our WiTT initiatives and giving us a platform to launch these important discussions. Hopefully we'll see you all back in March, and have a wonderful rest of your night, everyone. Thanks, take care. Don't even have to say drive safe anymore because we're all at home.